seem like they're rocking in that footage, but look, just in. To comply with a Supreme Court ruling, California is beginning to racially integrate its prison cells. This is my question. Is this social progress or a recipe for absolute disaster at the hands of judicial activists? With me now is Terry Thornton, who's a spokesperson for the California Department of Corrections, and is going to give us the upshot on what is happening with this desegregation of the prisons and how it's going to affect safety inside the walls of these prisons. Terry, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, Laura.
Now, Terry, I went through the Supreme Court's decision, Johnson v. California, that came down about 3 years ago in 2005. And it essentially said, look, you can't do this. You can't racially segregate prisoners, even though in prison a lot of people lose constitutional rights. They can't vote. They can't do a lot of things. But they said that that was subject to strict scrutiny and couldn't do it anymore. What are the real-world consequences for the California prison system?
Well, you're right, Laura, that the Supreme Court did rule that the courts, the lower courts, which looked at this case, the Garrison-Johnson case versus California, they did not rule on the constitutionality of the department's practices. They just ruled that the highest level of constitutional review needed to be applied in this case. They remanded it back to the lower court, and the parties agreed to mediate a settlement. The result of that settlement is our integrated housing program.
And the integrated housing program, yeah, that sounds very bureaucratic, but the reality is,
it does. I'm sorry.
The member of a black gang and a member of a Latino gang inside the prison could be forced to live together. Is that not right?
No, that is not right at all. We are not going to be so stupid as we're going to put opposing gang members in the same cell. We're not going to do anything where you would create a situation where two inmates might kill each other. That is not what this is about. Prisons in California have always been desegregated. Housing units, the yards, programs, classrooms, women offender housing, our conservation camps. We have 2,500 inmates out fighting fires in California right now, all integrated, always have been. What we're talking about is the male inmates putting two male inmates in a cell and basing those decisions on all available case factors and not race. What we're doing is taking race out of the equation.
Well, here's what one San Quentin inmate, S. Stiles, 36, at Vallejo, this is what he said. They should be thinking about what kind of war they are going to start. It's like putting a cat and a dog in a cell together. We self-segregate. That's what they did. That's the comments that I'm reading from these inmates who are they're in fear of their lives. I mean, you have segregated athletic events in prison, and it's just the way things are. It might not be the way we want things to be, but isn't that the way things are in prison?
Inmates do self-segregate. We do not segregate, though. I mean, there is no segregation in prisons. There never has been. Do inmates self-segregate? Yes. Are prison gangs and other disruptive groups formed along racial lines? Yes. But what we're doing, see, there was a time in California where they would just look at two inmates, and especially when they were first coming into the system, and they would look at these two inmates, you two are black, you're going to cell together. You two are white, you're going to cell together. And they were making these housing decisions at times based solely on race. That is no longer our policy. And what we're doing is taking race out of the picture.
Well, but let's look at some of the gangs in California prisons today. And I'm not an expert in the penal system by any means, but I'll tell you one thing. I don't think the Supreme Court justices, five justices in the court, are either. Here are some of the gangs in the California prisons. The Aryan Brotherhood, the Black Guerrilla Family, the Mexican Mafia, the Nazi Lowriders, and La Nuestra Familia. Now, I'm looking at that list, and I think that's breaking down along racial lines, is it not?
But no, the gangs are formed along racial lines, yes. But when you decide not to put a Nuestra Familia in the same cell with the Mexican Mafia, they're both Hispanic inmates.
Well, they're not carrying a card. They're not carrying I'm a member of this gang card, though, are they?
But let me finish my thought, please. What we're doing, we're not going to put opposing gang members in the same cell. But that decision is going to be based on the fact that they're opposing gang members and not based on their race. That's the difference.
Here's my view. You're a lot smarter than,
well, it's good law enforcement to
yeah, well, you're a lot smarter
not
on this,
put
Terry. We're out of time,
opposing
but
gangs.
you're a lot smarter on this than I am. But my bottom line is that I think the Supreme Court justices are not in a position to gauge what works inside the prison walls. You are, because you see what's going on, and the wardens are. But the idea of Supreme Court justices figuring out for us what's best inside the prison walls, I think that's lunacy, and I don't think that's what the Constitution requires, that's for sure. But I appreciate it. And gay marriage may be legal in California.